defense of the Stonecutter. Stonecutter is a block in Minecraft that I think is very underused. People don't seem to remember when they are thinking of crafting recipes that this block exists, and I think it is a crying shame. As such, I have created this video to try and convince you that you should use the Stonecutter. But first, some history. In 1.14, 18W44A, the Stonecutter was added. It didn't do anything, didn't have a crafting recipe, didn't exist anywhere in the world, and looked like this. On October the 31st, 2018, we get this humble block first added to the game. In 18W46A, the texture changed, and now we have a spinning blade. Next, in 48A, it was added to plains villages. In 49A, it was added to acacia and snowy plains villages. And in 50A, it was added to deserts and spruce villages. In 19W04A, it got a crafting recipe. Up until this point, you could only find it in the world. And it got its normal GUI. You put one item in, you click the thing, you get an item out. In 19W11A, it became the Mason's workbench as part of the new villager system. And finally, in 19W13B, stone bricks could be crafted into circle stone, and that was the last update in 1.14. So let's talk technical. Recipes. On the left here is a crafting table recipe. It consists of a pattern. So for instance here, this is how you would make a diorite slab in a crafting table, and the hashtag represents the item. So we can see here that it is 3 diorite to make the result, which is a diorite slab, and you get 6 of them. Although this isn't that complicated, it's more complicated than this, which is the equivalent recipe in a Stonecutter. On top of that, this is also a recipe in the Stonecutter that uses the same ingredient but has a different output. This is easier to understand, especially from this technical perspective. So for players, which is what you may or may not be, stone goes to many things. As such, you don't want to have to remember the recipes all the time. So here, you put a cobblestone into the Stonecutter, you can choose 3 things. You don't need knowledge of what you're going to get out, you just need to know that you want a different shape, and then you can put it in the Stonecutter. There is, of course, multiple outputs. I can put 1 stone in and I can get all sorts of different features. And only 1 input. There's only one way you can get it right or wrong. The UI itself, easy enough. You put the item in, you click on the Stonecutter's GUI, you take the item out. Let's have a look at a practical example. This is a castle. Let's say you want to build this in Minecraft. There's a lot of shapes that would be better if they had their own blocks, and since we are fancy coders, we can make them. But how many different types of blocks can you see in this picture? I've selected about 12. There is 12 stone objects that could be nice to have their own blocks. That is, of course, 12 recipes, and if you were to use a crafting table, 12 patterns to create, remember, and have to look up. This, of course, can be tedious to make and obviously for players itself. But instead, here is some thoroughly untested code that can generate recipes using a stone based on the block states that exist. In modding, block states are how you implement a block and how that block has different directions, for instance, in the case of stairs. But in this case, we just want it because we need it for our blocks. And as you can see, this is not particularly complicated code. We specify the recipe JSON, and then we write the recipe JSON, changing the things that are needed in this circumstance. And as such, it's very easy to generate 12, 200, 2000 recipes, and you don't have to worry about working about patterns. So, with some creative license, although this is a Stonecutter, it doesn't have to just cut stone. In the example image here, we can see a very similar looking machine that is used to cut wood. And as such, if you were a modder and you changed the name of the Stonecutter, or even didn't change the name, you could put wood recipes in it. With slightly more creative license, you could also consider it to be a bit like a fabric cutter or a metal cutter. And as such, it's very versatile, and it's very simple to add recipes and intuitive to tell the player, put this block or item into the Stonecutter and see what you can get out of it. There is a mod called Chipped that does a very similar thing to this, but with different sets of tables. But from a vanilla point of view, this works. So go use the Stonecutter. I hope this has made you feel somewhat better about it, and that you will use it in your future worlds. Thanks for watching.